we've forgotten that there's a God that we have to answer.
Dealing with people who reject truth.
I'm wondering in my mind why life is so difficult for me.
340 million people who are suffering.
Real stories.
Here's a man who's responsible for almost 7 billion people.
Real issues.
How much does peer pressure actually exist?
And real views.
Gangs exist at every level.
This is Real Talk. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another edition of Real Talk USA. Today we're filming our program from the Al Sadiq Masjid here in Chicago. And on today's show, we're going to be having a look at class divide and also community development. What are some of the issues that we face in society, and what are some of the ways that we can work around those issues? So to help discuss this topic and today's program, we're going to be introducing our panel here in the studio. So if I start from my left, first of all, I'm joined by Manan Sabir. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the show. Manan's actively been engaged in community development in Milwaukee, and at the moment he's actually working at the Lindsay Heights Neighborhood Health Alliance program as a coordinator there. Next, I'm joined by Azhar Nifsab. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Real Talk. Azhar Saab is the National Vice President for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jama'at here in the United States. And last but not least, I'm joined by Oren Williams. Welcome to Real Talk, it's good to have you here. And Oren's the Executive Director for the Center for Urban Transformation. So that's our panel of experts, and as usual, we also have our studio audience here, which will be adding in their points of view throughout the program. So before we actually start the discussion here in the studio, we wanted to find out what the general public think about this, and to actually just give a brief development and an introduction to the whole discussion. So here's our Word on the Street report.
My mother had left a legacy of serving her community. My mom taught Bible class in this very neighborhood for 40 years. And that stayed with me all my life. And I wanted to do what I could to help humanity with whatever gifts that Allah had blessed me with.
And I've always wanted to work with youth ever since I was young. It put a burning sensation in my heart to want to be able to work in a position that I could help other people. Particularly with the experiences I received and the new point I had on life itself through Islam, I wanted to find a way to share that with other people.
It teaches us in the Holy Quran that we're supposed to be charitable people, that we're supposed to be individuals who take care of the orphan and feed the poor, those young men and young ladies who grow up in a world without their fathers, without their mothers, basically struggling on their own, in a very violent world and violent society, as opposed to being in a nurturing family that really fosters good morality.
The main challenge is to develop a relationship with them where you touch their spirits. And that's always what I've tried to do is touch them spiritually, not necessarily religiously, because they are, as we know, there's a thread of truth that runs through all religions. Islam is just the ultimate evolution of all those religions. So I try to touch their spirits and their souls in a way that they know that I care about them, but whatever effect I have on them, that they can feel that, I have love for them and I want the very best for them, and I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to get the best out of them.
The ultimate victory in competition is derived from the inner satisfaction of knowing that you have done your best and that you have gotten the most out of what you had to give.
Because I wanted to be somewhere where I could have a chance to implement a vision that I had about what would really work in this community and communities all over the world to help change the trajectory of young people. So what I did was I volunteered to go around to all the centers and do a Say No to Drugs campaign. So I used to do life skill workshops in all the community centers. And that was a humbling experience, but it was also a great educational experience, and it allowed me to really touch the young people at their core, at their most relaxed times, socializing and having recreational experiences, and I shared that with them. So it kind of started as a volunteer experience in a center very similar to this one.
And I've been here for a little over 7 years. I'm probably the oldest employee here at Youth Bill Lake County. And it's been a blessing for me to be here to help young kids, help guide young kids, through their youth. So we have a variety of students up here. We have Hispanics, we have Europeans, we have Afro-Americans, we have Jamaicans. So we have students that have made bad decisions in their life and they want to get their lives kind of straightened out. So one of the things we have here is a GED program that helps you acquire your high school equivalent certificate. So it's like a high school diploma. So we have that program here because it's very difficult to get better jobs that pays above minimum wage if you don't have your high school diploma.
Youth Build actually will help change your life if you're not doing nothing. You know, I used to just sit at home, watch TV, just doing nothing, just wasting my time.
I was tired of dead-end jobs. I've been at McDonald's for 5 years, and I got tired of being in that window. You know, I wanted to change. Got my my high school diploma, but really can't go nowhere with it. You know, so it was time for a change.
Before Youth Build, I had finished high school, and like, I thought I was going up the right path, but I wasn't. I got involved with selling drugs, started doing drugs, started partying and stuff. And I just got tired of it, and I said, I need to find a place to go so where that can help me. And that's when I heard about Youth Build through a friend. And they said they can help you get your life on the right track. It'll open up doors. But you have to make the decision if you want to try hard to make that big change.
My story is that, you know, I was just tired of not doing nothing with my life. I wanted to do something with my life. I want to become a veterinarian after this. And Youth Build will help me do that.
I was getting tired of like repetition, doing the same thing. Like the party life and being out, it wasn't getting me nowhere. And I actually want to do something with my life. I want to be successful. Like, who don't want to be successful? You know, so I just got on the right path.
Like I said, where we come from, they talking about flooding the hood with dope, devastation, and destruction. But we believe that it always has to be a part of your people, or always have to be some people who stand for a different kind of deed, who stand for dreams, who stand for dedication.
And one of the religious values that always stuck with me is that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was a man who was a champion of the people. He was a servant of the people. And he committed his life to helping individuals at all cost. So that's really essentially my role model for the activism and the community work that I'm so fond of.
And what I try to do, and my mom told me, who's taught Bible class in this neighborhood for 40 years, she said, son, do all the good you can and the Lord will bless you. And that was very inspirational for me, because a lot of times you don't know if you're making a difference until you see the results of whatever efforts you put into these young people.
Well, I first met Jamil through one of my Optimist coaches, Coach Greg, and he thought it'd be a good workout for me and help improve on my skills. So I met it through my Optimist coach.
Jamil, like, he work us out. Like, he'll let you know if you're doing something wrong. If you messing up, you know, he gonna correct you.
It's working really good for me because I'm staying out of trouble, I'm staying busy, I'm staying active, and everything else. Oh, he's helped us by staying out of trouble, you know, helping us improve on our basketball, keeping us in shape, teaching us about, you know, life and stuff like that.
He pushes you and he gives you confidence in your game, and he disciplines you and he teaches you the skills and everything like that.
Jamil can improve on your stuff. Like, on the street, no one's gonna tell you what you're doing wrong, and Jamil can tell you what you're doing wrong.
Me and my family, we closer to Jamil, and Jamil, he trained a lot of people, and he trained like a lot of pros and stuff, and they all like were successful.
Yeah, there was one individual, Karan Butler, who's now a member of the world champion Dallas Mavericks, and Karan's mural is behind me. But Karan was a gang member. He was on the street. He was selling drugs. And I literally went and took Karan off the street. There were times I went and got Karan off the street, and he had an ounce of cocaine in his possession, and I had to make him take the cocaine home and come to basketball practice. And eventually, Karan was able to take hold of the mentorship that I was trying to give him, and he became an NBA player and now a world champion, and is probably worth $100 million. Not saying that money is the equation to success, but his life changed drastically.
See, what I think is this, I don't really believe in bad kids because I believe that, like they say, the fruit don't fall far from the tree. That's right. So 9 times out of 10, if you got a bad kid, that kid grew up in a situation that made them that way. So is it really a bad kid when you grow up in a situation that your mom's is on dope? Are you really a bad kid when you grow up in a situation that your daddy is locked up in prison or got killed, so he's not there to give you the proper guidance? Are you really a bad kid if you a young girl and at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old you've been molested by somebody? Are you really a bad kid if you a boy and there's no food in the house and you placed in certain situations where you feel like, I gotta do what I gotta do? Are you really bad? You're not a bad kid. But ultimately, you still gonna have a responsibility to change yourself and change your own life regardless of what happens.
Never be a follower. You're always a leader. The main thing is to always be positive about something. If you want the best out of life, you have to work for it.
You have to believe in yourself, and you can't let others bring you down. Education is important if you want to choose what you do when you grow up. So, you know, if you don't want to be stuck with the job that nobody else wants to do, I suggest you get an education and stay in school.
It's really important to get your education. It is, because you would not get nowhere without it.
If you got a goal set for yourself, just take many little steps to get there. You'll get that event. It might take a while for you to get there, but you're gonna get there.
You have to find some type of spiritual purpose in your life. And if you do that, then you have a chance of surviving a very, very tough, a very, very long and torturous path to adulthood.
I believe there is a God because, as I said, the things I had been through my life, I felt like there was nobody there for me. I called on him, he was there to help me.
I was indoctrinated with the idea that you can't just be out for self, that you have to give back, that this is what we do as Muslims, this is what we do as good people.
The training I got in Qadam al-Ahmadiyya was service to humanity. That's basically what Qadam al-Ahmadiyya means, is service to humanity. And in Ahmadiyya, one of their main focuses is teaching our young people and providing opportunities for them to serve humanity. And hopefully once you move from Qadam al-Ahmadiyya into Ansar Allah, with this training, it should make you easier or have a soft heart for helping those people that has less fortunate than yourself.
And I believe ultimately that the Ahmadiyya Muslim community will have buildings like this all over the world. Because if you want to really reach young people, you need a facility that has a multi-purpose, a recreational purpose, a social purpose, an educational purpose, a spiritual purpose. So when they come there, you don't necessarily try to religiously indoctrinate them, but they know that there is an energy that's there, and that energy is an energy about developing the holistic nature of the individual. If you seek righteousness first, everything else will be given to you. And it also says that in Christianity, seek first the kingdom of God and all things will be given to you. So we can't get caught up in materialism, because I think now materialism and greed is the reason why you see young people all over the world rebelling.
The Western world is a rough society to grow up in when you're trying to maintain your spirituality, but try your best with all your heart to remain the godly, righteous individual that you are, because it truly is the purpose of our existence.
Well, that was the word on the street, and I hope that gave you a fifth introduction to the whole issue of the topic that we're going to be discussing today. Azhar Nibsaf, if I could just start with you, can you just give us a brief introduction about this topic? I mean, why are we discussing this topic now? Why has it come to the forefront of people's mind?
Well, I think everyone has seen recently that there are tremendous movements for change in the world. Whether this is in America, where you have currently in many cities what's called the Occupy movement, and people have come out in force to demand certain changes in society. The same is the case in places like the Middle East, where there's called the Arab Spring that just blew through the entire area and affected a lot of nations, and again, the call for change. And I was in UK about 6-7 weeks ago, and we saw the rioting taking place and a general outpouring of frustrations by a certain segment of society over the issue of a division. Now, you can say it's a division based on culture or based on economics, but the reality is it's that 1%, as you say in America, that controls 40% of the wealth, and they dominate the resources, and the have-nots, the 99% throughout the world, are feeling more and more alienated from access to what gives them, let's leave aside a great life, but just a basic life. So they're all protesting, they're revolting, they're rioting. And here in America, we also see that this has been a problem for a long time throughout our history. And people are asking for a change. So in essence, this is how we can make that change in a positive way.
Yeah, we'll be discussing that later on in the program. Mr. Williams, just turning to you, I mean, we're here in 2011, and we're at this stage where Western society prides itself on how much it's developed, but we're still talking about issues such as class divide and the rich and the poor living very separate lives. Why do you think we're still at that stage?
Well, for me, I think it's not only an economic question, but it's a question of power. And that's something that most of our people don't come to terms with and don't deal with. If you walk or ride the streets of Chicago, particularly here on the South Side, you'll see thousands of vacant lots. The devastation of commercial areas, that sort of thing. And communities are often powerless to figure out strategies to repair that damage. So for me, it's really about power, and it's really about having a capacity and even understanding that you have the ability to demand that certain things be done. So, we need to be planning for new housing development, for commercial redevelopment. We need to be planning for new schools. We need to be planning for how we eat well, how food is produced, and having access to high quality and healthy food. So it's about power for me.
Brother Milan, just bringing you into the conversation as well. I mean, as Anif Saab mentioned, we've had these protests, and it seems all over the world. And why do you think particularly the youth are getting involved in these?
Well, the youth they're the spirit of the community. As you see, the youth have certain powers within them that our elders can't exhibit at this period in time. If you take a look at a baby and how a baby comes out, they're always moving up until the time that they sleep, as opposed to a person who's older, a person that's older physically can't exude that particular threshold of moving up until the time that they sleep. They have to stop, move, stop, and move. Our youth are also, they have accumulated within America approximately hundreds and hundreds of years of oppression and suppression in certain societies. And so they are the movement with a quite distinct undercurrent of dissatisfaction.
Right.
And so with that dissatisfaction, they're going to promote movements such as Occupy, wherever, Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Chicago, in order to relieve themselves of this suppression
for those
and
people who
pressure.
are watching and maybe don't understand the Occupy movement, Nazar, can you just shed a bit of light on that for our international viewers? What is that movement about, and what are they actually doing?
The Occupy movement is a organized protest against the disparity of wealth in America and the division that comes about by that, the haves and the have-nots. And now you've seen, after the global crisis, economic crisis, there's been a tremendous effect on what's called the middle class. As long as you had, and there's always been division in America since this nation's been established according to the current system, and whether that was the land owners and the indentured servants who would come in, or whether that was the industrial magnates, people who controlled all the industrial wealth and those who were the laborers and the workers. That's always been there. The difference now is that middle group is getting closer, pushed down to those who were the have-nots, and that pressure upon them is forcing them to react. And they're reacting, saying to those who are in the power, the bankers, the government who are making these policies, where they were giving so much money to the banks and other industries, other organizations and businesses so that they will not fail. They're saying, where is our piece of this pie? We therefore feel left out. We can't get jobs. We're losing our homes. We can't afford education. All the basic necessities of life are out of our reach. So they are frustrated, and they feel the way to let the government know, the people know their frustrations by standing in front of buildings like Wall Street, Stock Exchange, or other companies and saying, you're the ones causing the problems. We want to let you know that, loud and clear.
Well, I want to get the audience involved here because we're talking about youngsters and the frustrations they have. And, well, we have some youngsters here as well. Do you think you've got too much pressure on you right now in terms, you talk about the cost of education, getting a job? What's it like at the moment living in America, and what kind of frustrations do you have as young people? If I could just start with the brother there, you've got the microphone there. What would be your own personal views? Do you think a lot of youngsters have these frustrations?
Absolutely. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. I think a lot of it determines where you grow up. Myself, I grew up in a suburb in Detroit. Therefore, I had opportunities that some people on the south side might not have. And that's unfortunate because I think a social class can give you a leg up. If I go to a school that has good teachers, more or less, I'm going to learn better. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm more intelligent than the next person. And that's a problem that's, as Missionary Saab has just mentioned, it's the social classes. It's just becoming more and more where the middle class is going lower and lower and lower. Now you see the kids that are in the suburbs, they're going to private schools now. So now even the kids that are in the suburbs, they're suffering as well. So I think where you grow up plays a great role in how you're going to end up.
Okay, all right, thanks. What about the brother next to you? What are some of the issues that you face as youngsters living in this society?
Assalamu alaikum. Although I'm not a youngster, but at the same time, I think in the United States today, unemployment, of course, is a large issue. And that, of course, affects everything from an economic standpoint, as far as your education, where you live, etc. So from my vantage point, there are a lot of college students coming out of college now. They have college debt, and at the same time, they can't find employment. So I think that's feeding into a lot of the dismay, as well as the movements such as Occupy Wall Street, etc.
Okay, let's get one more point of view, someone maybe from the back there. What are the issues that we are facing? The brother there in the blue shirt in the back, what would you like to add to that? As a youngster growing up here, are you aware that maybe you might not be able to get a job, maybe you have these financial difficulties? Is that something that worries you? Do you even think about that?
Assalamu alaikum. Definitely do. Like brother in front, Kaijab mentioned, depends on where you grow up and definitely the people you associate with. It all comes down to where you want to go in life, how you want to succeed. If you're hanging around the wrong crowd, your influences are going to determine where you end up in life.
Right.
So if you don't have somebody around you to guide you and give you some sense of pride about the things that you are going to do or need to accomplish to succeed in life.
In this program, we're talking about class divides as well. Do you think here in Chicago, we have that class divides where you have like a rich area and a poor area and people just stick to their own areas?
Definitely. I think anywhere you go, you're going to run into that. It doesn't necessarily mean if you're in the inner city or if you're in the suburbs. That's everywhere. You know, there's going to be middle class, low class, and of course the rich.
Coming back to the panel, obviously we have an international viewership for this program. Ms. Williams, maybe you could comment on this. Is this an issue that we're just facing in Chicago? Is it just in the USA? Is it globally, looking at it from an international perspective? Is this an issue that is just local, or is it something that affects the national level?
It's absolutely global, and it's intergenerational as well. Whether you're youth in a place like Chicago or you're an elder, there's no jobs. And we talked earlier, and I was saying, I don't know what I would do if I were 17 or 18 or 19 years old. When I was 17, 18, 19 years old, we basically could literally go downtown and find a job, even if it was working in a mailroom. Now, you don't need me to work in the mailroom because you can send that document via email. So you've had automation take a lot of jobs, and then, of course, moving jobs offshore. So in this country, of 300 million or so people, how do you compete with a workforce in China and India of 2 billion people? And with the desire to exploit people that's been with us for at least 500 years. So if you can employ people somewhere for $2 a day or $3 a day, then why do you need to pay these young folks here, you know, $8, $10, $12, $15 an hour to do work? So one of the problems here also is that people can make money and become rich and not produce anything because they rely on a system that operates that way, and it's dependent on being able to create wealth by not paying people and by not really sharing the wealth.
Yeah, Brother Manan, just coming to you, I mean, isn't that the American dream, coming here, developing your own business, being entrepreneurial and making money? I mean, why are we saying that that's causing an issue now? Doesn't that seem to be a bit of a contradiction?
It is a bit of a contradiction. I mean, you get to come to America and, you know, you develop your dream and then you build it and then you progress it and then you propagate it to someone else. And then it becomes perpetual. But over a period of time, it becomes kind of a disease or an dis-ease for some, where the top class of your company make the most amount of your money, and then the lower class of your company gets the least amount of your dollars. Whereas where they're going home, it's still the same thing. So we're having this, again, we're coming back to the issue of slavery, where you're having people who are working for a longer period of time and making less money. But now we're learning that since we're in the age of social media and globalization, we're able to take this power of jobs and produce more for less in other countries and still retain integrity within our companies, and receive in other countries tax breaks.
Right, okay. Well, I just want to get your perspective on that in terms of balancing this up, because on the one hand, America prides itself on being capitalistic and making money, but then you have this strange sort of conclusion that comes from that people are making money, but then you have others who don't get that money, and there's no equal sharing and distribution of that wealth. I mean, what would be your views on that?
Well, that is a struggle that is mentioned even in Scripture. The first government that's talked about in the Holy Quran is the government of the Prophet Adam, where he was given a mandate by God that you have to ensure certain things are distributed equally amongst your people. And that is food, water, shelter, clothing. If they can get at least these fundamental four things, it's a decent government. And now you say that in any nation, any developed nation, you look around in America right now, how many people are homeless? That's an indicator that part of the mandate hasn't been fulfilled. How many people cannot put food in their children? Forget about adults. Children are going to bed hungry tonight. No food, no water. That's an indication that the mandate isn't fulfilled. And again, how many people now are unemployed so they can't provide the other basic necessities of life? So something in the equation is amiss. There's an imbalance in the equation somewhere. And America, therefore, is going through this struggle like all of the nations, whether it's Africa or Asia or the Arab world. We now are going through the same struggle, being a developed so-called superpower. It doesn't matter. As long as the people are struggling, the people will recognize. We don't care if there's 1,000 or 1 billion billionaires in our country. We have 340 million people who are suffering, and their lives count.
No, that's a very good point. I want to get the audience's perspective on that as well, as a group of people who are maybe studying and looking to go into jobs, of those of you who are in employment as well. To what extent, when you're making money, do you think that actually maybe there's so many other people out there who aren't making money, and what responsibility do you have to them? Maybe someone from the front row, the brother there, what would you like to say if you just take the microphone?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thanks,
In general, I mean, the society we live in is fantastic if you want to work hard and live that American dream. But the root to the problem that I see is the lack of spirituality, which causes, roots off to many different vices. One being integrity.
Mm-hmm.
So living in the economy that we do, the very capitalistic nature that we have, we try and obtain a high status. But at the same time, we tend to step on, not toes, but even heads and shoulders, whatever we need to do to get up there. That's where you have lost your integrity. You have lost the righteousness, that spirituality, We've forgotten that there's a God that we have to answer to.
So you're saying society's lost its sort of moral framework, and that's why we're getting this imbalance?
And partially, yeah.
Right.
And once you do make it, and if God has blessed you to make it to that standard, then in the Quran and any spiritual, book, it tells you to give back to charity, give alms. That is part of who we are. That is part of being a human, and God has blessed you. And he'll try you with finances, and he'll try you by taking them away. Both are trials.
Right.
So
okay.
It's
what about the brother next to you, and what would you like to add on this topic?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Habib. I was always told as a growing child that whether you're blessed or not, you should always give, to unfortunate ones. Like my father once told me that, people, like he said, lose integrity because once they're rich or have made the American dream, they lost sight of God, and they think that everything's okay and don't have to count on Him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it might be a trial as to whereby, he's blessed you so much and trying to test you to see what you're gonna do with it.
The brother next to you, what would you like to add on this? Do you think there's still, how do we get around this divide where we have the super rich and the super poor in one country? How do we actually bring about an equal opportunity for everyone?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa
Well, first, fundamentally, I think we are living in a society or in a world that is very unequal and is very unbalanced. And the economic systems that we are using is also fundamentally unbalanced, and it represents a minority class of people. So thus, no matter what we do, this particular system will not solve the problem. But of course, morality and spirituality has been the fundamental thing that is lacking within this economic system, because it's a dog-eat-dog or cutthroat system. If you got the money, you got the right to exploit other people, you got the right to do whatever you want, basically. So a system like that is not compatible with humanity, so it's very inhuman. Okay. So morality and spirituality concept is out, because you just want to get more and more and more. It's about me and me and me, so which is detrimental to the human family.
All right, Jazakallah, thank you for that. If you can keep the microphone there. Turning back to the panel, I'm just looking at you. We're talking about spirituality and moral frameworks. That's what the youngsters here are talking about. Within the mosque that we're in today, it's got such a huge history within the Jama'at, because this is where Mufti Muhammad Sadiq Sahab came and actually founded this mosque as the first missionary here in America. In the early 1920s, if I'm correct. At that time, he gave advice to the community, to the society as a whole, of ways of getting rid of this imbalance under the rules and under the guidance of Islam. Can you just shed some light on what he taught then, and maybe whether it's still relevant to society today?
Well, I think we have already answered the question whether it's relevant or not by the responses from the audience and the responses from my distinguished colleagues here. He approached it as a Muslim, and yet he approached it as a person who's looking at human lives. Either they are living their full potential, or something is stultifying, is stopping them from reaching those potentials. And he came into America, and the first thing he faced as a missionary in 1920 was inequality, discrimination. They said, stop at the border because you're not of the Judeo-Christian background. You're a Muslim, and you're going to come here and start preaching and teaching things that go against some of our principles. But what he found when he came in the country was, in fact, the principles of Islam are framed in our Constitution: equality, justice, life, liberty, and all these things. And he's looking around and saying, but you don't practice what you preach. Your land is not fulfilling, again, the principles by which you have established this nation. And thus he saw the inequality between races. That was in the 1920s, well before laws were being passed.
Right.
At a time in America, if you were a woman or you were basically a non-land owner, you were indentured servant, or you were African, slave, former slave, you couldn't vote. You were not considered even a full citizen. Those rights came much later. He saw this. Again, he felt this is a hypocrisy. You're claiming one thing, but you're living another. Then he saw the wealth problem that we talked about already. That there is a class of landowners or wealthy merchants, or whoever they are, they have everything. The rest of the nation is struggling to reach that goal, whereas in Islam, that was demolished. Because the Prophet of Islam, he faced all these same things in Arabia, and he made steps to alleviate the suffering underprivileged underclass.
Okay, all right, we'll have to leave it there because we're coming to the end of this first half, but obviously that's given us something to look forward to in the second half of the program, and that is what we're going to be touching on. In the second half of the show, we're going to be looking at some of the challenges that we face, but also what are the solutions and what can we do as a community to bring people together. So stay with us, we'll be back after this short break.
Another milestone in the history of MTA. Another sign fulfilling the prophecy revealed to the promised Messiah alayhi salam. I shall cause thy message to reach the corners of the earth. By the sheer grace of Allah, MTA's broadcast can now be seen on your mobile phone anytime, anywhere in the world. Watch MTA International wherever you are with our new mobile streaming service. Simply visit www.mta.tv on your iPad, iPhone, BlackBerry or Android device and choose the stream of your choice.
Visit MTA International's official YouTube channel to catch up on past episodes of your favorite programs. If you want another chance to watch Hazrat Khalifatul Masih's Friday sermons, MTA International's special programs and documentaries, or our wide selection of nazms, simply visit www.youtube.com/MTAonline1. MTA International's official YouTube channel, delivering our unique content direct to the world.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to today's show. And on today's Real Talk, we've been discussing class divides in society and also community development, and that's what we're going to be focusing on in this second half. How do we actually bring society together and what changes can we make? So Brother Manansab, if I could start with you first of all, what changes can we make as individuals to actually make a positive change in society?
Well, first of all, develop some type of love for yourself. I mean, that's the most important key, is trust and love for yourself. And after that, develop a story about yourself from that particular love and trust. You know, love and trust of God, love and trust of yourself, then develop a story from that particular point. Well, as you develop that story, you start reaching out to other people, and then you try to find similar stories that connect and collaborate with your story. After that, you develop something. It doesn't have to be a building, it doesn't have to be an organization, it doesn't have to be a club, but it has to be something that will create and develop that type of vibration to keep it going throughout other communities. As we look at our first communities, that's how it was started. From Adam, it was developed out of love. From love, it transferred to other people, and then it grew into a community. So now we have, you know, a community of 5 to 6 billion people, where we have to do that internally. So we have to start from the inside out. And so, as for me, that's how I think that we have to organize ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Williams, just turning to you, in terms of the work that you do at the Centre for Urban Transformation, can you shed a bit of light on that and what kind of work you're doing to bring about a grassroots change to this society that we live in?
Well, for us, it's about figuring out how to connect, like the brother was saying, with other beings. And it's about compassion. And one of the things that our organization embraces in terms of how we do our work, in fact, there's some of the principles that come out of Buddhism. And I couldn't express those principles any better than he did. I mean, they're all universal, it doesn't matter. You know, when we get down to it and we really connect as beings, we're all one people, you know, and we're all connected cosmically. So, but for us, one of the main examples I use is the question around food. And, you know, a lot of people talk about urban agriculture, right? So we definitely embrace that as a strategy. But for us, it's not just about production. It's about looking at the system. Right. And food operates within a system, from production to consumption, and everything in between. And so for us, how do you develop that? You know, how do you make that manifest in a way that allow people to eat and allow people to be employed?
Right. I mean, one thing that would be interesting, what are the effects that you've noticed since you've been working on this scheme? What have been the benefits and what effects has it had on society?
Well, for one thing, the consciousness level of people is beginning to increase about what they eat and how they eat, and recognition that a lot of the stuff that we consume is really not food, you know. And people begin to realize and understand that what you put into your body impacts and affects how you operate in the world. And so live food is best, right? You know, not chemical food. So, and then begin to understand, like, how do you disrespect farmers, right? When they provide the nutrients that we need. And as beings, you know, the nutrient flows that come to us, we're only as healthy as that system.
Right, right.
So, you know, recognizing the nature of that.
No, that's a really important point. I mean, as a sub, I just want to bring it back to this topic of how that affects society as well. I mean, how can we, as individuals, because at the end of the day, some people argue that it's human nature to look at people in certain ways and have that, maybe have that prejudice. Where does that prejudice come from? And it is potentially human nature to sort of stick to people of your own class, of your own religious background, of your own ethnic background as well. How do we break those barriers and actually get out into community and make these connections?
Actually, I believe the opposite. I believe human nature is of a higher order.
Right.
It's the lower nature of survival, which then can manifest in very, you can say, destructive ways for self and for community. Because in the animal kingdom, there's some basic rules where they're all going to survive. In our makeup of society now, that's causing all this frustration. And I mentioned earlier, you know, the basic needs aren't being met. You put an animal against a wall, what does it do? It comes out fighting. And this is what people are doing right now. They have been denied, so they have to come out fighting. And this is not the first time we've seen it. I mean, this cycle keeps coming around and around and around. Right. And as I said, when I was in UK, I was surprised to hear the responses from society, who are, especially those who are well-to-do. It's the same every time. If you would just work hard, if you would just go get an education, if you just do X, Y, and Z, you'll be just like us. Well, that's impossible to do because you have already controlled everything, and that's against human nature. Because Islam defines a human as one, as they have said, who has compassion, who has love for each other in their society. That's a true human. We've lost the human quality, and you asked about America, that's what we're losing slowly but surely. It's not the system so much as it is the people in the system. We became greedy, became selfish, became, you know, self-centered, and forgot about the other. Right. Now the other's very quickly reminding them of, we do exist and you should take care of us.
Yeah, I mean, you've talked about the system. Maybe we're living in a corrupt system. Maybe it's a really difficult system. But what can we do as individuals? I want to get some perspective on what you think about that. Just brother there, I mean, what do you think that we can do on an individual level to actually work out and make this into a better society?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, what I can say is that, you know, as we live in a society whereby people are very, very self-centered, I myself as a parent, what I do is I advise my kids, I encourage them to get involved with other people. Don't see themselves as being less to anybody. Because in a society whereby the rich are just running away from the poor people, and the poor people are saying to themselves too. So what we can do is that we can encourage, you know, the rich people, as is given in any religious, books, you should share your wealth with the poor people. If those people could do that, and also the people who are poor, they should not sit themselves down. They should get up, you know, do something for themselves, regardless of what the circumstances are, and also try to be with other people, don't have any low self-esteem about themselves, I think there will be some changes in the society.
Okay, all right. And the brother next to you over there, yeah, what would you like to add to that?
Assalamu alaikum. I agree with what he said. The most important thing is to look into yourself and see what you can do to improve the society. You have to take that initiative to break down the barriers that we have built up. Take the extra effort to say hi, good morning to people around you. Get to know the people around you, people in your community. If you live in one part of your community, which might be well-to-do, why not just take some time to go to the other parts of your community, maybe volunteer or work with other organizations like food shelters, youth counseling groups to, give
Do you
back.
think there's enough opportunities to get involved in these programs, in these community programs?
I think there's
we
quite a
need to
few
more?
opportunities, but we get caught up in our own personal lives and kind of just put it on the back seat, which is unfortunate.
Okay, and yeah, the brother next to you, what would you like to add to that?
I actually want to just come back to Brother Manan's point with the whole concept of love. In the society, you see the people who tend to make it, to raise up to great heights, have an identity, have a family identity, have an idea of who they are and what they're about. Whereas individuals who kind of fall towards the wayside, the ones who become dissenters, are the ones that don't actually have a grip as to who they are themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, they can't move forward because they're always stuck in the past of what they don't have, what they aren't. And if people like that would try to focus on that, and it's incumbent on the people who do have an identity to try to help these other individuals, then the society as a whole will move forward, because it's going to end up happening where 99% is going to drag everyone back down.
Right.
And that's kind of what the state we're in. That's why there's such a cyclical motion to it, because we fall and then we kind of raise back up and then we fall.
Okay, yeah, it's about maintaining that balance, and let's see if we can maintain that. Ms. Williams, just coming back to you, in terms of the work that you're doing at your centre, what response have you had from youngsters particularly to this? Have they warmed to it, and are they taking it in their stride?
Most enthusiastic response, and again, you can't beat the energy of youth. What's most striking to me is the will and the desire to learn and to do things, and looking for opportunities to do things. And I think that's one of the things that we have to embrace as a society as a whole, is providing opportunities for people to reach their optimal capacity, whether it's in the arts or, as a barber, it doesn't matter. But we need to make those resources available to people so that they can realize, an optimal state.
Right. That's an interesting point. Brother Manan, how do you relate that to youngsters and tell them that, you're someone who's got all this potential, and then you can realize that? Because I think sometimes youngsters, they often lose sight of that. They don't realize that they lack that motivation. So in terms of the work you've done, I mean, how do you actually inspire youngsters to reach that optimal potential that Mr. Williams touched on there?
It's exposure. The first state in life is the physical state, or one of the first states. So you try to expose youngsters or youth to something that they'd never seen before. If you take for example, if you take a youngster or a child or a kid or a teenager who's never been out of the city of Chicago, who's never been out of the city of Milwaukee or New York, and you put them in a place like Bali or Morocco, their world is open. The doors are wide open. They know that they can go across the pond or across, land to expose themselves to something that is quite physical and tangible, rather than something within a book where they say to themselves, and they're still doubting themselves even when they're reading their book, or the words that I'm never going to make it to this place. But if you take them, if you build a ship, sort of like Noah, and you put them on the ship and not leave them, on a very high hill, you grab them, you take them to a spot, and you say, this is what you can have, then their dreams and their doors will open a lot wider. So in my work as a health and wellness coordinator, what I do is I give them access. So part of my job is to provide mental health services. Part of it is to provide mental health services, and not necessarily in the counseling, but the front end, in approaching the individual before they reach the end result. It could be, the end result could be prison, the end result could be CCC, the end result could be death, as you know, we've all experienced in recent times. Right. But before a person gets onto that downstream, determinant of health, we want to reach them and provide services for them or resources, and also the capacity. Capacity is key. So capacity within those resources in order to develop programs for kids and youth, so they will have that exposure.
All right, thanks for that. I want to come back to the audience actually, because it's a really important topic. I want to keep on to this. I mean, what we're discussing now about unlocking that motivation and that potential amongst youngsters. I mean, what would you like to comment on that?
Like he said, like the brother said before, you just have to believe in yourself and really not get caught up in what everyone else is doing, and just try to find a motivation for yourself. As like I said, like with technology booming and you have all the social media and you have a bunch of TV shows and whatnot, now you get to see what other people are doing. And if you get to see, oh, look at them, they're doing this, they're doing better than me, you should definitely like stay away from that and try to just find it in yourself, like as, just a self-motivation.
Growing up here as a youngster, whether it's some social groups or religious groups or even in schools and colleges, do you think young people are getting motivated enough? Do you think they're being taught about their own potential and what they can do?
I don't think so. I think, honestly, like from like we said, school and other communities, I usually feel more motivation if I come to the masjid and the khada meeting or general meeting or whatever. I see more motivation in there where people are giving people better advice than at school, because I feel like when you come to here, everyone's here for one goal. But when you go to school, people are there for different degrees, everyone coming back from a different background. Over here, like when you show up at the masjid, you have like one goal.
That's interesting. Yeah, the brother, do you think maybe you're being encouraged enough to go out into the world and make the most of it as a youngster?
I think when you go to school, when you go to college, join like different organizations that'll help you with unlocking your potential, I guess, or help you converse with other people, talk to other people.
Do you think there's enough? Do you think we need to do more?
I kind of agree with what Shazir brother said. When I go to the masjid, I like going to the masjid more than like going to college. But college is important. I have to go there, and I used to be a shy person, but talking to other people, getting a job, that helped me, get through that.
Okay, so thanks for the points of view from the audience there. And just turning back to the panel, we're coming to the end of the program as well. And if I could just ask for some concluding remarks very briefly. Ms. Williams, just turning to you. We talked about class divide, talked about community development as well. Just very briefly, what would be your concluding remarks about the whole discussion we've had today, and what steps we can take for the future?
I think it's all connected to creating a cultural and spiritual framework that embraces everybody, and moving that agenda forward so that people can reach their full potential.
Okay. Azani Saab, just very briefly, how would you wrap up today's discussion?
Very briefly, it is to stay positive and constructive when we are confronted with challenges. And short of that, we are our own worst enemies by destroying our environment. The riots, the rebellions, it does more harm to the neighborhoods that are already suffering than the powers that be that caused that suffering. So I would say that what we're talking about today is individuals such as this get involved in anything that can first make you positive and can make a positive change around you. That's how we change the world, not by shouting out and shouting people down and destroying, etc.
Okay. And Brother Manan, what would be your final comments for today?
Develop your own story and own what you see. Own that. Own the clubs. Own the neighborhood grocery stores, and own what you see. Be on the top, but don't be on the bottom. Always give, but don't always keep taking.
Okay, all right. Jazakallah, thank you to the panel for your points of view. And I want to thank the audience for taking the time out and coming to be a part of this program as well. To the viewers at home, don't forget you can always put in your points of view as well. You can email us on realtalk@mta.tv. Also, don't forget to visit our official website, mta.tv/realtalk, where you can find out information about our future programs and also check out the programs that we've had in the past as well. And our Twitter address is there for you as well, so you can keep in touch with the latest Real Talk news. At the end, I'd just like to say that us as youngsters, you know, we do have this potential, and sometimes we do lack that motivation, but whether it's through religious organizations or whether it's through just coming together as a community, we can build those building blocks for the future, for the better society as well. So I hope you can take that message away from you. I hope you've learned something. And if you have, make sure you tell your friends as well. Get them to watch the programs as well for the future. So with that, I'd like to thank you once again for watching. Hope you stay tuned for more Real Talk programs in the future. But until then, Assalamu alaikum.